Amen, amen.
Yes, yes, yes. So let me pull up my slide here, and we're gonna jump right into, let me see. All right. Okay, I want to make sure. Let me see here. All right, can you all see okay? Can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, it would be nice if I could hear some people talking back, so we can all be on the.
Yeah, we can hear, we can see.
Yes, yes, and also just let you know that we are also recording. So for later, for those who will be joining us, for those who will be joining us late. So, and real quickly, probably some of you are new. My name is Elisa Mangesho, and I am part of the teaching staff. So I am glad to be here. So as we've been seeing today, we're going to be learning and teaching. We're going to be learning, and I'll be teaching on maintaining a strong ethical framework. But before we go into that, I just want us quickly to see or to look at what really is ethics. What is ethics? And so to kind of just open up a little bit, I know we all have ideas what ethics are. You know, we probably have, you know, you've heard somebody saying, no, this is not something ethical to do. Probably I mean, it's a topic that it's something that has been around, and we all kind of have an aware of that. But as leaders, as future leaders, and those who are current leaders, God is going to take you into various areas of leadership. You may, at one point, believe, probably you already are, or you will start your own company, will be running your own company. We really have to dig into what is ethics, what is code of ethics. But before of going into that, let us kind of look at some few scenarios that will kind of give us a perspective of where we are going. Now, for example, look at this question. If a company develops a vaccine that everyone needs, should everyone get access to it, including those who cannot afford it? If so, who should pay for that? Okay. So I don't know whether if you want to take a quick, somebody want to take a quick shot on that. If you were presented with that scenario, what would you do? What would be your proper response? And I said again earlier, as leaders, we may encounter scenarios like this. It may not be something like this. But think about that. And I'm sure when the COVID thing came out, the issue of the vaccine, who should get the vaccine? Is this vaccine good? There were some countries refused to take that vaccine. Again, it all boils down into what is ethical. Oh, think about this question here. Should everyone have access to good food and water, including those who cannot afford it? If so, who should pay for that? You see, who should pay for that? So again, it's much more broader than you think when it comes to ethics. And again, as leaders, in one way or another, we are going to be facing this issue. Now, it could be ethics in your own personal life, we would look at that as well. But then ethics in general, in the framework of where you'll be leading, where you'll be, like I said earlier, probably it's your own company, your own ministry, in whatever way of life, the issue of ethics is very, very important in terms of governing and guiding your company, your organization, your ministry, including your own life in the right direction. Or look at this question, for example. Should people in power, like company executives, have salaries hundreds of times higher than the cost of living where their employees make less than the cost of living? Okay. Now, I brought this one here on purpose because I know some of you, God would open leaders, you'll be executive of companies, you'll be making quote unquote 6-8-figure income. And sometimes an issue like this happens. Should people in power, like company executive, have salaries hundreds of times higher than the cost of living where their employees make less than the cost of living? So let me just hear, so for example, let's say if you were posed with that question, what would your response be? So just invite for anyone to try and take a shot on that. So let's say somebody brought this question, you were hypothetically think you were in a meeting, or somebody just threw this there, your company. What would your answer be? Let me just anyone? Anybody wants to take a shot on that? Should people in power, like company executive, have salaries hundreds of times higher than the cost of living where the employees make less than the cost of living? And again, there is no right and wrong to this question. So don't feel like, man, you have to be right. And probably you could be the one that you agree with this statement, but why? Or you could be one disagreeing with this statement, but why?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is Solomon. According to the question, the question is asking us, should people in power, like company executives, have salaries hundreds of times higher than the cost of living where their employees make less than the cost of living? Obviously, here we would get answers relative to someone's thought life and belief systems. Now, us here as a family of Beyond You, we are Christ-oriented. So I would say, with the Christ mind that we have, or that perhaps, since I'm answering, personally, I would say the mind that Christ has given me would make me to selflessly consider this, because Christ teaches us servanthood leadership, which would make me actually not regard myself so much above other people. So here we are seeing as if employees make less than their cost of living. So if employees are making less than their cost of living, then we would have to reconsider. At least someone should get above their cost of living. It's even worse that now the company executives are getting a multiple figure of what these employees are getting, yet they are even getting less than their cost of living. So I would not support this. I would really call for a reconsideration. That's selfless leadership, servanthood leadership.
Awesome. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you for taking a shot on that question. And you're very right. I like what you said earlier, you said something very powerful you did mention. You said it will depend on the background of the person. So in other words, it will again depend on, and then of course we'll look on that here in depth on the moral value of that person, what they believe. But I also like the way you try to answer a little bit, you know, and again, it boils down to what is ethical about this. Again, remember, we're talking about maintaining a strong ethical framework. But before we can maintain that, we need to go a little bit deep. We need to peel the layers back and see, okay, what really is ethic? What governs it? What makes it work? Why are they even there? So I like the way you said too, probably we may have to have a meeting and as executive and discuss, you know what, I think it's not ethical that we as an executive, we are making way much more. And while these people who are the one making us rich, we are paying them less. So let us increase their salary at least to a point whereby they can manage the cost of living. But again, you may have somebody else, you know, counteract that depending on where their belief and the principles come from. So that being said, let us quickly define what is ethics. And I know, like I said earlier, I'm sure some of you already have an idea, but let us just do kind of like a refresher course on this one, and then we'll go deep on it here in a little bit. But really quickly, when it comes to ethic, what is ethics? What comes to your mind? And again, anyone, feel free to give a shot on it. What is ethics? Or what is ethic?
Hello.
Welcome, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. I think, in my view, this would be the principles a person chooses to live by that become a behavior pattern. Yes, that is my definition for now.
Beautiful.
The principles, yes.
Yeah, I think you are right on the money here, because ethic really, just from a simple dictionary definition, is moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. If we go a little bit deeper, we could also say that ethic also called moral philosophy, the discipline concerned with what is moral good and bad and moral right and wrong. The term is also applied to any system of theory of moral values or principles. This is according to Britannica dictionary. But as we go a little bit deeper though, the term ethical outlines standards of right and wrong in a social, professional, or legal context. And this is where now I want us to kind of divide this here in a little bit, okay? So you can have your own ethical standard. For example, like your family can have, you can come up with your own ethical framework for your family. And this again depends from place to place. But the area where I felt that we need to focus more is as leaders, and where God is taking you to become leaders. Some of you are already leaders. Like I said, you'll be having your own company, or probably you already have your own company. It's something that you have to consider and to make sure it is in place. So workplaces have a code of conduct or ethical code to highlight acceptable forms of behavior. And as a matter of fact, if you are working, your organization or your company that you're working with right now, or your own ministry, if it's something that you have never heard of, I think it's something that you have to follow up and see whether it's there or it's not. So for example, we could say code of ethics for lawyers or for healthcare providers. Code of ethics for lawyers or healthcare providers. So at the end of the day, it's really something that it's there to guide the general day-to-day activities. Now, another thing that you also have to distinguish is between ethics. Okay, could somebody mute? You could hear some background. I don't know whose mic. Okay, thank you. So we could see here that, so okay, what I was trying to say before that noise came in, you can have principles of your workplace, right? For example, you're supposed to come on time, you're supposed to do all those kind of things, but that is what governs that. So ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. This is according to Porter Stewart. That's a very beautiful quote I came across. Because you could say, this is my right. As a leader, this is my right. As a company, this is our right. But is it the right thing to do, even if it is in the framework of what is right? So before we dive deeper into ethics and whatnot, there's one thing that I want us to look at, and this is to distinguish between ethics and moral. Between ethics and moral. Now, ethics standards are distinct from moral principles, even though the two may overlap. Okay. Again, like I said, it's a very, there's a very fine line when it comes to ethics between ethics and moral. Because when we talk about ethics, we can be confused and think, oh, ethic and moral is the right thing. Yeah, they're very different, but the two overlap. And again, we would look into this one here in more depth, because you can have your own moral principles, but your moral principles, they may not necessarily be consistent or be the same with the ethical standards of where you work. So the three main areas where we would like us to look at that will give us the difference between ethics and moral. Again, there's somebody that your phone is. But when it comes, like if we could remember to mute, that would be awesome. So one area, the first point that can distinguish between ethics and moral is the consistency. Moral rules are personal and vary from individual. While your actions and moral beliefs may remain consistent, your moral behaviors can differ greatly from the behavior of others. Ethical principles remain consistent across industries and institutions. That's very important. Again, remember, we are trying to differentiate the difference between ethics and moral principles. I'll repeat again. Moral rules are personal and vary from individual, while your actions and moral beliefs may remain consistent. Your moral behaviors can differ greatly from the behaviors of others, whereby ethical principles remain consistent across industries and institutions. Again, I'll repeat this over and over again. You are leaders, future anointed leaders of God. And it's one area whereby ethics is something that you will have to control, to govern, and to make sure they work. Now, so for example, you can be working with a person who is of a different religion on the same company. So remember, a person of a different religion may have different moral standards from you. But as long as both of you are working in that same company, same organization, your ethical has to be the same. It's going to be across the board. That's point number two. Another point that that would govern the difference between ethics and moral is in decision making. Okay, both your moral values and code of ethics influence your decision making daily. I'll repeat again: your moral values and the code of ethics influence your decision making daily. Moral decisions stem from personal values. However, when you encounter an ethical issue, your code of ethical behavior would influence your response. For example, a defense lawyer chooses to defend their client even if it contradicts their moral beliefs due to their ethical code as a lawyer. And that can be very tough, sometimes can be very, very different. So for example, you don't believe in drinking, okay? You don't believe in drinking alcohol. I'm talking about you. And you say drinking alcohol is bad. But then you are a lawyer and you are defending somebody who was drinking or who had something. So you could find yourself defending the drinking habit of that person, even though your moral values don't allow you to drink. I think you get the point. So again, we're just trying to, when we talk about ethics, as we dig deeper, we just want to look at those two differences. But as we go down also, there are also factors that govern the difference between ethics and moral. Different contexts influence morality and ethics. So for example, ethical rules stem from social context since they relate to societal regulations of an entire community or organization, which establishes the set of ethical beliefs to decide what is wrong, what is right and wrong collectively. So in other words, in your organization, in what God is, I mean, the area where you're going to be working, as their organization, they can decide ethical, what is right and wrong. On the other hand, moral codes exist on a personal level as individuals internalize a set of values to create their own concept of what is moral, correct. So, which means you can have your own moral principle, like I said earlier, but then there are governing factors that can distinguish between your moral values and what your organization deems to be right and wrong. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because you may come to in a situation whereby, for example, you don't drink, you don't believe in drinking, but your company has a party whereby they would involve, the drinking, the smoking, and all those kind of things. It's part of them, one of their ethics. Say, we need to have a time of us to get together and enjoy. So the question comes now. You can still go to that party, but your moral values may tell you, no, I cannot participate, I cannot drink, I mean, I'm going to be there, but I cannot participate in whatever they do. So again, moral values code exists on personal level as individuals internalize a set of values to create their own concept of what is moral, correct. But however, though, as you think about that, your moral also is going to help you on how to ensure that the code of ethics in your company or organizations are run. But we will look at that here in a few minutes. So that being said, since we have already kind of put those two into different perspectives, because sometimes we get confused between ethics and moral, let us jump now into the nitty-gritty for today. So what is an ethical code, or what is an example of an ethical code? An example of a code of ethics would be a business that drafts a code outlining all the ways the business should act with honesty and integrity in its day-to-day operations, from how its employees behave and interact with clients to the type of individual it does business with, including suppliers, advertising, and agencies. Now, for example, I work in a transporting industry. Now, I don't believe in smoking marijuana and all those kind of things, but some of our customers are people who grow marijuana, people who grow, here they call cannabis. And there's one point whereby we were supposed to transport, I was supposed to ensure that certain type of manure was being delivered to this farm which grows cannabis. Now, of course, in the state which I live in of Oklahoma, they have legalized the use of marijuana, just for recreational use. So you can only buy a certain amount. Now, my company can decide and say, you know what? Because of what we believe, we don't believe in delivering this kind of goods to this kind of people, because we know when we do that, it will cause more harm to them. But guess what? My company still delivers. We don't care what those people do. Our goal is in the ethical point of it, we don't go behind what they do. Whatever they do there is their own secret. Our goal is just to deliver goods to them. Now, your company can decide and say, you know what? No, 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 no. We are not going to do business with people who grow marijuana. And again, it can vary from company to company. And that's why, as leaders, it's something that you have to think, and you have to think ahead of time. For example, as I was doing a research on this, I came across this codes of ethics for teaching. I came across this one. This was a particular school. In this particular school,
it is always there on Sunday.
When it comes to the code of ethics for teaching, they have something like this. Say confidentiality, if I could pronounce that. It says this, that teachers must protect students' personal information as well as respect the confidentiality of the academic performance and progress. That's code of ethics for teaching in this particular school. They go on to say, professional boundaries. Teachers should maintain appropriate relationships with students, avoiding favoritism and maintaining a clear distinction between personal and professional roles. It goes on to say that fair assessment, teachers must ensure that assessment and grading are transparent, fair, and based on objective criteria. Inclusivity. Teachers should create an inclusive learning environment that respects and values diversity, free from discrimination and bias. Now, I want to talk a little bit of inclusivity here. Now, I don't know where we are. I know of course, we are a based Christian ministry beyond you, but there's some institutions, for example, that they have, they allow gay teachers, they allow gay students. There's some schools whereby students who are male, they want to be addressed with the she, her, or women or feminine pronouns. And there are some cases that have even gone to the Supreme High Court because the teacher says, no, this person is a boy. There's no way I'm going to address them as a woman. Now, again, it brings us back to the moral principle, your moral point of view versus the ethical, what the school decide. Like, for example, for this school, like what they have decided to be as their ethical codes of conduct. So when it comes to inclusivity, the teachers or the school could have decided, you know what, if the student his name is Mark, he's a male, and he wants to be addressed as a she, we as teachers, we will go ahead and address them that even though your moral values says, no, we cannot, I cannot do this one. So now it comes not to your own personal value now as a leader. Okay, should I continue working here and follow these ethical codes, or should I just quit and find another place? You could be the one involved in putting something like this together. What would you decide? What would you choose? I mean, what would be your direction? So again, when it comes to code of ethics, it's very important because again, it governs and directs. Now, this is code of ethics for teaching. It could be code of ethics for your ministry, it could be code of teaching for lawyers, for nurses, depending on where you're working. Just a quick example here. I'm just gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna keep on sharing. Just a quick example. There's this company I was working before I started this other job, and I got promoted to be a leader in my department. It's a company that deals with pest control. So I became a leader in this particular department. Had about 20 to 25 employees that I was supervising on a daily basis. Now, as a company, the leader of the company, there was already ethical code that we're supposed to follow. But in my department, there was no any ethical code. So guess what? As I became a leader in that department, I started realizing that things were not happening as it's supposed to be in my department. So guess what? I came up with code of ethics of conducts for my department, and that enabled us to become more productive, enable us to become more relating well with our customers. So again, like I said, as leaders, it's something that you have to think, you have to research more and more, because as you are going, where God is taking you, it's something that you'll encounter. And it could be something that, and I'm going to repeat this over and over, that goes against your moral values. And that's where now you have to use wisdom to do what will be the defining factor. So probably before we go forward, let me just open, if anybody really quickly before we go to the next one, if you have a question, or probably you were involved in writing or putting together ethical codes, either for your company or for your own life or for your ministry. If anybody, you want to share that a little bit, if it was difficult, if it was okay, if it was good, what challenges you had, or if it's working for your company. So welcome, anybody, feel free. And then we'll continue with the next half of our program this evening. This evening, your time, morning here in the US. Anyone? All right. Okay, so let us continue here. So now, we kind of briefly...
Funny, I think I can send it via text. How is that?
What did you say, my friend? Come again? Oh, okay.
I think my network is a little bit amazing. It's on and off, but I wanted to ask more about do we as people have personal ethics and codes of conduct? How do we ethical codes? Sorry, how do we define ethical codes and reconciling them to our day-to-day work? and not bringing the company codes to our own life. Yes.
Yes, that's a very good question. Yes, we all have code of ethics in our own life that gets our life daily to day. And when it comes to our own personal code of ethics, I think we tend also to include more of our moral values to it, more than if we were to be at a company. But it's true. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. In fact, let me go and answer that on this next slide here that we're going to look at. And so, just to answer the question, so what causes code of ethics to function? And I think I will try to answer that question here, try a little bit, at least to touch on your question, my friend. So, you're a leader, you are at a company, there's code of ethics that we're supposed to follow. So as a whole, you and I know that not everyone, or sometimes you, or even myself, have broken code of ethics sometimes where I work, or even in my own personal life. I'm sure some of us, we can testify that in one way or another, we have broken code of ethics, whether it be in our own individual lives or in place where we're supposed to work. So for example, one of the code of ethics at your workplace would be you need to be on time. You need to clock and be at your work at 1 p.m. or 8 p.m. But how many of us sometimes we come 1 hour late, half an hour late? Our break is supposed to be 10 minutes, but we extend that break to 15 minutes or to half an hour. So coming back now to what we are learning this day, what is it that would cause the code of ethics to function? I don't know whether I have the right title there, but to make those work, that those codes are not broken, that they are followed, they've been followed wholeheartedly. And this which brings me to this point now, and that is integrity that is driven from having the right moral standards. Now, if you remember earlier, we talked about ethics and moral. They're two distinctive things, but the two can overlap. The two can go hand to hand. And I believe the two goes hand in hand when it comes now to implementing the ethical standard, those ethical standards. It will come back now to your moral standard. So integrity is driven from having the right moral standards. So what causes code of ethics to function? Now, coming back again to my example that I gave earlier of the the ethical code that I had to do. Now, my department that I was working with, 95% of the time, when you are at work, nobody sees you. You are on your own for at least 95% of the time. You are given a route, you're given a company vehicle, you go and take care of the customers' homes, and the customers may not be at home at that time, but what would guide you or govern you to do the right things, to keep the ethical code? So for example, this particular company that I was working with, which I was the leader of my department, we dealt with taking care of termites, preventing termites from not going into customers' homes. And each home had a system, like a bed system, which could be anywhere from 28 to 30 of those units that go around the home. And the employees had to check each one of those. And it was so tempting, because remember, before becoming a leader, I used to be in a route. I used to do all of it. I used to know all of those. And you are so tired. It's 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The sun is hot sometimes. You have to be outside. You're asking, man, I can just skip 2 of those. I can just skip 3 of those. Nobody's going to find out. Nobody's going to know if I did it. What would keep me keeping the framework of ethic, even if nobody is looking? It boils down having integrity, having character. Now, if you look at the word of God in the book of Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, and this is, I don't know just what happened there. It says this, Philippians 4:8, believers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever of respect, whatever is right and confirmed by God's word, whatever is pure and wholesome, whatever is lovely and brings peace, whatever is admirable and of good repute. If there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think continually on these things. Center your mind on them and implant them in your heart. Now, you remember when we first began our course, we talked about having the right heart as a leader, having the right heart as a leader. And again, if you see, there's a connection here. When you have the right heart, when your mind is about pleasing God, even in your workplace, you would find yourself following and implementing the ethical codes of your company, of your life, even when you may feel, man, I cannot do this anymore. Okay? So what causes you and I to implement these ethics or to make them function in our life is integrity. And how do you have integrity? Again, it's walking in the fear of God. It's having the right heart, knowing that I'm here to do what? To please God and not the person. As a matter of fact, again, giving example, I remember when I was servicing this one house, this is before I became a leader, like I said earlier, I noticed there was a camera. This person had put cameras inside and outside of the house. Because the cameras were there, guess what? It made me work even more careful, more diligently, because in my mind, I know somebody was watching me. As a matter of fact, there was this one house whereby I don't know whether the person was remotely controlling this camera or whether it had a sensor, but each direction I take, the camera was following me, was moving me. That made me do my work well. But my question is, and my question to you is, what if the camera is not there? Would you still do the right thing? Would you still adhere to the ethical code of your personal life and of your company? It boils down to this again, that it's based upon your moral value, what is right and wrong to you. And you and I, we know that what is right for me is for me to do what? To do the right thing. So I wouldn't dwell much on that. It's something that I would encourage each and every one of you, that do as if somebody's watching you. And in our mind, we think nobody's watching you, but in your mindset, do as if somebody's watching you. But even if nobody's watching you, know that God is watching you and you want to do the best, to provide the best for the person that you're working with or you're serving. And then we'll talk about here later, but also one thing that I kept telling my people that I was leading them, if it was your house, how would you do it? Okay. And I think if it was your house, you do it well. Because again, when we follow the right ethics, it is beneficial to you and your company. I see Reverend Job, you raised your hand. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Papa. You talked so much, and I have really gotten my answer out of the conversation you've given. Now, about the ethical, the personal ethical code.
Your phone is breaking. Your network.
Your wisdom meet.
Yeah, Reverend Job, your network kind of shaking. Can you try again, or if you could type it on the chat? Okay, so now, as we are kind of concluding and winding this down for today's topic, let us look at one thing, and this is, why is it important for your organization, your own personal life, where you'll be working, to have ethical codes? First thing first is really satisfying basic human needs. Being fair, honest, and ethical is one of the basic needs of a human. Every employee desires to be such himself and to work for an organization that is fair and ethical in its practice. In other words, I've heard, I don't know whether this is true, but I've heard in some parts of hospitals in Africa, I know particularly heard this was a hospital in Kenya, the chemotherapy medicine, they would add water, they would dilute that medicine so they can have more to give to patients. Now think about that, So the reason we have to have ethical codes and to follow them, like I said earlier, is because we want to be truthful. We want to satisfy basic human needs. And again, like I said, and I'll keep saying this over and over again, and please forgive me for that. Men, God is calling you to be leaders, great leaders. Some of you are already leaders, whether it be in your family. Let me say this, in one way or another, you are a type of a leader in an area. You may not be, quote unquote, an ordained leader or a leader that has been given a certain role as a leader, but the people who are always looking at you. But for the sake of what we are learning in this program is you as a leader, as you'll be organizing and guiding your ministry, you have, friends, you have to think about this. Man, as my company, even if you are just selling tomatoes on the side of the road, even with that, you should have your own ethical code. And one of the reasons is to satisfy basic human needs, but also creating credibility, okay? An organization that is believed to be driven by moral values is respected in the society, even by those who may have no information about working in the business or an organization. As a leader, keep that strong, because you want to have referrals, right? Man, that company is great. They're always on time. You don't have to wait in line. As a matter of fact, in my company where I'm working right now, when you call in for assistant, let's say you want an assistant, if the phone goes on hold for 2 minutes and nobody answers, somebody else will pick up that phone. Recently, I was very, very impressed with my phone company. The company that I have service with is called T-Mobile. I had called to upgrade our phones, and this guy was like, I'm gonna do a follow-up call in 1 hour to make sure that your phone is working properly. And in 1 hour, this guy called me back. I was like, wow, I don't have to call back. And guess what? When it came for me doing reviews, because later on they'll send a review back, I put a very good review just because of that. And so when you as an organization, when you have good ethical codes and you are following them, guess what? It will create credibility for your company, your ministry, your organization. You become a person of your word, and somebody will come after you. But then also, in your company, in your organization, whatever God would lead you to do, having ethical codes, an organization driven by values is revered by its employees also. There are common threads that brings the employees and the decision makers on common platforms. This goes a long way in aligning behaviors with the organization towards achievement of one common goal or mission. Again, like a personal example I gave you, one of the moral ethical codes that I wrote is it is okay to ask for help if you are stuck. So in other words, if an employee is working and he gets stuck, it's okay for him to give call to another person to come and help him before they give me a call. So there was that one of us that is called. And when that person gets a call, if they're in the position to help, they're supposed to go and help that person. But also, it improves in decision making. A man's destiny is the sum total of all the decisions that he or she takes in course of his life. The same holds true for organizations. So when we have ethical codes that we follow as organization, it helps in decision making. But also, having ethical codes would help the organization be profitable in the long run, especially when you follow them and keep them. And I'm sure it's no brainer. And here's the thing though, sometimes because we're doing the right thing and your friends are taking shortcut, you may be tempted and say, man, like I said earlier, they are diluting the medicine, they're getting more money. But guess what? More patients will be dying. But if your hospital or your organization says, you know what, even though we are making a loss, we would not dilute our medicines, we would adhere to these ethical codes, guess what? More and more patients will be more healthier than that organization that is cutting shortcuts. So in the long run, in short terms, the other person who is breaking the rules they may be simply making more profit, but I can guarantee you, if you stay good for a long time, man, you would reap. There's a scripture which says that don't grow weary in doing good, for in due time you will reap a harvest. So leaders, I'm addressing you as leaders, men, don't grow weary in doing good, in keeping use of ethical codes, whether it be in your own life, because in long time, you will do what? You would reap, you have good success. You'll be profitable. So now, as we conclude, like I said, down the road, you'll be calling to write ethical codes. What are those things that can guide you and help you in writing ethical codes? It could be for your own life probably, but I'm focusing more on your organization, in your ministry, and what God is calling you to do and lead. So how to write code of ethics? Now, there are many ways that could be, but this is what I came up across with. First thing first, establish the purpose and scope of the code. This is coming now on writing your ethical codes. Establish the purpose and scope of the code. Why do you want to write this code? Why do you want to put it there? What is it going to do? Number two, identify the key values and principles of your organization. Amen? So in other words, these are the services we provide for this ministry. So this is what we're going to do. I gave you an example of codes for the teachers. It talks about inclusivity. It talks about whatever the principles is. So you're going to have to identify, for your organization, your ministry, even your own life, like somebody said earlier, identify what are your key values and principles. Then, secondly, develop specific standards of behavior to follow those codes of behavior. In other words, how are they going to be implemented? Come back on time. Come to work on time. If you have questions, ask, so and so on. And there could be code of ethics, like I said, for the general company, could be code of ethics just for a department that you'll be working on. But remember also, when it comes to code of ethics, you also have to include consequences of non-compliance. So for example, the codes that I wrote for my department, I told them, of course, I always go and I do quality checks. So one of my work was to go and do quality checks to make sure that they did what was supposed to do. So one thing I included was, it's going to be a verbal warning, a written warning, and the third time, you're going to be fired. And I'm sorry to say this, but I had to fire some people because of non-compliance of not following the ethical codes. For those who know me, man, I have a soft heart. And when it comes to firing people, it was not my cup of tea. But even with these people, though, I will give them, tons and tons of chances. But again, you have to include that. But also, you have to encourage reporting of violations. If somebody is breaking the code of ethics, there have to be a safe way where somebody can report those codes. Because guess what? If somebody is not following that, one person literally can take down the entire company. There's a trucking company here in town. I would like to mention the name, but I was talking with one of the leaders in this company. He was saying that their drivers, they've been violating so many rules to a point whereby now the Department of Transportation was coming to evaluate them. And this guy was telling me, they can shut us down. You see? So encourage reporting of violations when it comes to code of ethics into the organization that will be leading or you'll be working with. But also review and update regularly. Always try to review them, update them. Time change, things happen. Nowadays with technology, for example, like the company that I'm working with, they have cameras in these trucks, cameras which face the road and face the driver. There was one time way back whereby people could use their cell phones, but now because of so many accidents, one of the ethic codes of conduct is not to have your phone, because when you have your phone, it's like you're driving blindly. You cannot have your phone when you're driving, okay? In fact, I even told my family, one of the things that we established is when I happen to be on the road when I'm driving, you have to call me 3 times, non-stop. Then I will know it's an emergency. I'll find a safe place. I'll stop and call back. But otherwise, and in fact, I've even implemented that when I'm driving my own personal car. When I'm driving my car, it has become now my code of ethics that I will try to the best of my ability not to text when I'm driving. But then also, you have to communicate those code of ethics, okay? You have to tell the people over and over again. Remember, have a meeting, call them back, ask them questions. Where should we improve in this code of ethics? Because again, remember, we are talking about our topic today, maintaining a strong ethical framework. And in order to do that, you have to, some people go to sleep. Some people, for example, in my company, we have what we call monthly training updates, where they send this text with a link that reminds us what we're supposed to remember during that time. So it needs to be communicated over and over. So really quickly, before I provide you guys with your homework for this coming week, anybody has any questions, anything you want to add? We've gone 5 minutes above our time. I see some of you are yawning and you're ready to have dinner, ugali and chapati and mandazis and whatever, the beef stew. So anybody has any question or anything you want to add or to say?
I have a brief sort of question, concern.
Yeah.
In our Uganda here, I know in many other countries as well, the system of traffic police, is really not very. The system of traffic police has really broken so much in Uganda, here, I was actually asking somebody, how will I handle these traffic officers when I begin to drive? Because literally it's like if you don't give them some money if they stop you, it's abnormal. And then if you give them some money every time they stop you, it is normal. So it has become something normal across the country. And it's very serious. It's very serious. So I was thinking, how? At some point, I was telling a friend, maybe you just change the name. Should I just say, I feel like giving you some water, some soda today? It is very serious. I think any other Ugandan can bear witness. You reach a point where if maybe you're three in a vehicle and you are against giving the traffic officer money, and the issue also is with the traffic officers because they want money whether you have an issue or not. So in such a scenario, how would we handle?
Somebody answered here that they will take the water to her on the chat group. I don't know whether that's the right answer, but probably let me open that to somebody else. What would you do in that scenario? You have an code of ethics you're supposed to follow. You know that giving bribe is not the right thing to do. And I'm sure in one way or another, we have all, I'm sure some of us, we are not, you know, in the position. Welcome, Noreen.
Yes, something like 1 month back, I was with someone and someone wanted the money, the traffic officers. So what we did was we ensured that this traffic officer follows the rules. So first you tell us what was our problem, what did we commit that was wrong. If after telling us, then you tell us the penalty that we are supposed to be paying, how much is it? Then you write us the receipt, print it, and give it to us. Then we shall pay the money through the right channel. Because for them, they want the money here directly, but the right way we are supposed to be paying is you're supposed to go to a bank and pay. So when we told him that, he got shy. So he decided to report us to his supervisor. So when the supervisor came, he knew that the guy was the one in wrong. He just laughed at him and told us, you guys, you can go. It's okay. So literally we kept our side safe, principles followed, ethics followed, and at the same time, we didn't break the rules. So I think you just keep it, follow the rules, that's it.
Noreen, that was a great answer. Solomon, did you get it?
Yeah, sure. I got it.
Yes. So at the end of the day, really, is to follow your conviction, is to do the right thing. And like the way they did the right thing, they got rewarded. Remember one thing though, friends, and we live in a world that sometimes doing the right thing can cost you even more. As a leader, what would you do? I suggest is just to do the right thing. Remember, it caused Joseph to be thrown in prison. He was in prison for a very long time. But because of his ethical and moral principles, he determined to do what is right, and he became the #2 leader in the whole of Egypt. And Egypt was like the largest powerful nation on earth during that time. And again, that does not promise that everyone will be on that, you become rich eventually. But what will boil down to do is in your heart, you will know that you did the right thing. And that's what is important. You may not get a promotion as Joseph did, but guess who you have to live with every day? It's you. It's you. Really quickly, it's a very powerful testimony, and then I'm gonna do the homework. I want you to follow me this testimony that I'm going to share you. It's very, very powerful. Follow me here very soon. There was a leader here in the US who applied for a job. So this company, multi-million company in revenue, this is a true story, 100% true. This leader was promised, you're talking about $1 million a year. So they flew him to California, did the interview, he passed. They provided him with a room, hotel room. And when he went into the hotel room, when he opened the door, he found an escort in there. This company paid for an escort. This was like a woman, like a girl to spend the night with. And this guy was married. You know, he had his wife, had his children. So he walked into the room. There was a glass of champagne there. It was, you know, it was a way, like, I don't know what they want to call it, code of ethics for this company, you know, blah, blah, blah. But it's the way they were welcoming him, this guy. When this guy went into that hotel room, he told this lady, put your clothes on, get out of my room. This guy called his wife, told what his wife what was happening, what was going on. He bought his own airline ticket and flew home the next day. No. He flew home that very night, the next flight. And he called back the company and said, you know what? If you guys, if this is what your moral principles are, okay, I don't think if this company is right for me. That was what he started to do. So again, coming back to what Doreen said, and coming back to a question, at the end of the day, is doing what is right. So friends, I don't want to take much of your time. Let me provide with the homework real quick. It's going to be a very, very easy homework this time. And I'm going to give you as much time as you like for you to work on it. And here's the homework. So the homework that I'm going to give to you is this. Is number one, is come up with an imaginary company, organization, or ministry. See, this is an imaginary. Now, it could be a company or organization that you are thinking of doing. So you could be having a head start on it already. Or it could be a company that you are already working for, or your company that you're already working with. You could even go and talk with them, or it could be your ministry. But either it's something that you're already doing, something that probably you don't have, but just come up with one, just think of one. And then, what I would like you to do, create a minimum of 5 ethic codes, maximum 10, okay, that would govern your company. And then, what I'd like you to do is, what are these or those ethical codes intended to do for your company, organization, or ministry? So in other words, what will be the end results of these ethical codes? What are they intended to do? Now, very simple, like I said, it could be 1 page, it could be 2 page. So in other words, so first thing first, your imaginary company, just say the name of my company, organization, ministry is so and so. This is what we do. These are the services we provide. Then write 5 ethical codes that you would like your organizations, your company to follow. And then briefly write down what are those ethical codes intended to do for your company. I can give you just some briefly, you know, I've got ideas could be this will make us work together as a team, bring more profit, whatever it is that you would come up with. And then remember to include your name and title on the paper. I'm giving you 2 weeks to do this. And I think Petra came up with a way on how to submit that. And then, so that will be, and if you want to add, I didn't add there, but if you want to add, how are those codes going to be implemented? It's just something to keep you thinking. Like I said, as you grow, as you become leaders, it's one area that you're going to face. But again, like I said, some of you already have the ministry, you already have something going. You can use, or you could even write back what's already, if you have already written them, you can go ahead and share with us. That I have organization, I already have my code of ethics. This is what they are. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you already have the code. So with that being said, I'd like to throw it back to Petra, and she will conclude it for us today. Welcome.
Okay, hi, guys, that was a powerful session. Thank you so much, Pastor Mangesho. And for everyone for joining us today. Our time is fast spent, so just want to wrap it all up. Ethics. It's a big topic, and today we just barely scratched the surface. I think we have a whole full module on it. Ethical leadership. Please make sure you continue going through the models. This is just to, inspire you guys, motivate you, and also to hear people's personal stories with ethical dilemmas that, you're experiencing, like Solomon was asking, Doreen shared her ethical dilemma. I can tell you I've experienced a lot of those, not only in Uganda. I think we were in Tanzania, headed to Moshi. We experienced a similar thing. We were stopped probably like 6-7 times on the road. And it's different, especially when they do realize you don't know the local laws very well. When they know you're coming from abroad and you have, the bazungus and stuff, the rules seem to be shifting a lot. It's not only on the roads, it's every office you go to. Unfortunately, even in churches. Yeah, some of you get shocked to hear that, but it's true. I've experienced it in Africa. I experienced it in Nigeria, where you walk in and you're asked at the door if you know the pastor personally, and if you're a personal friend of some sort, so that, you go take some of the reserved seats ahead. And to me, all that boils down to ethics and its integrity. It's like, I don't think church should have such, I understand protocol and all, but I think sometimes it's overrated. Now, those are issues we can share about and keep talking about. Those are ethical dilemmas, and some of us face it on a daily basis. Some of us are blessed to be working in a more protected area where, or atmosphere where the rules actually are held. And if you work in the corporate, like corporate America, you'll be faced with a lot of ethical dilemmas. I worked for corporate America for some years with the state of Oklahoma Department of Human Services, and I can tell you there were certain things that were over the roof. And I'll look at myself and say, oh my God, if I continue doing work like this, Christ shows up today, I don't know what I will tell him, because my heart wasn't in alignment with some of the things. And so what I wanted to say is that as you begin to now think deeper about your ethics, your code of ethics, I want to encourage you, define what those ethical standards are. Don't just throw words out there: integrity, honesty, accountability. Really define what it is. And here's the key thing: make sure that even if it's for the company and you're listing it out, how does it align back? Like Reverend Job, you asked a very great question. How does it align back to your personal values and principles as a person? Because eventually you're going to find yourself into a conflict, your personal values in conflict, in direct conflict with the organization that you represent. So how do you handle situations like that? Those are the lines of conversations that I'm looking forward to hear in the next few days as you begin to submit your assignment. That assignment on ethics, but we've just scratched the surface today. We'll continue with this topic in the near future. Thank you so much again, everyone. Unless someone has a question, otherwise, I would love for us to close. We're now 20 minutes past the hour. So any question, any burning question, clarification, concern, prayer request? I do have a prayer request for the prayer warriors in the house. Please remember our coach Cynthia. She has a friend who lost a daughter yesterday. And so that's why she's not online with us. Just remember the family in your prayers, and Cynthia and her friends. as we close. Okay, today we have a quiet room. People are processing. Today we have a quiet room. It means people are thinking deep. All right, if there's no question, I would love for us to close with a word of prayer, and I'm gonna ask our sister Doreen Nakaloi, if I can say your last name, but you know who you are. Doreen, please go ahead and close for us with a word of prayer. Thank you again, Pastor Mangesho, Coach Mangesho. We do value your input here and your time. Thank you for being a part of us today, and for everyone who logged in. We will be sharing the broadcast recording for those who missed, especially if you had poor network. But I don't want to use the recording as a way of encouraging people not to log in. So we're going to talk about that as well. But thank you so much for coming on. God bless you.
Bless you too. Thank you very much. Let's pray. Father God in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the session we've just had. We thank you for the wisdom and knowledge that you have granted to us. Father, Lord, continue guiding us, continue protecting us until we meet again. Protect us, Lord, for today's night or day, and continue showing us the right way through, and help us keep our ethical values and principles and of the places that we do work in. In the name of Jesus Christ, I've prayed. Amen.
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 Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your dinners, and see you next Saturday.